Today we're going to review the very best use and skills for the Berserk Faedrake. The Berserk Faedrake is an amazing pairing with Ferondil, who inflicts cowardice. Now, technically, he's good with any debuffer, but as long as there's a cowardice debuff, now you've found the best pairing. So in this video, stick around for everything you need to know, including the full build I'd recommend to crank the damage. Let's get going. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons. And I now have a combat build on my Berserk Faedrake, and I'm a little sad because this is one of those pets that really benefits from a lot of pet skills. And tragically, I only have 5 skill slots. Now, just for the record, in my eyes, a pet is pretty much done when you have crazy attributes like this and 6 or more skill slots. It's like, bro, you are not going to do much better than that unless you get crazy lucky. So with that said, you got to find the very best skills to deploy, and we'll talk about exactly what those are. But as is the case with all pets, what they do is really defined by their talent skill. If the pet doesn't have the talent skill, you can hold on to them if you want to, if later you're going to transfer a talent skill onto them, but you should put no skills onto your pet if they don't have a talent skill. So what does this one do? Each debuff effect inflicted on a target legion gives you a stack of Fierce Mark. And when you inflict cowardice, you get 2 extra stacks of Fierce Mark. So I think that means you're getting 3 stacks of Fierce Mark when you do a cowardice debuff. You're 1 stack for a debuff and 2 extra for it being cowardice, I think. I don't know for sure though. All stacks of Fierce Mark are consumed 2 seconds after your deputy casts a rage skill, dealing damage to the target. So the way this works is you're going to do a damage factor times the number of Fierce Marks you accumulate. So basically, you accumulate marks by doing debuffs and then do damage based on the number of marks you've accumulated. That's the way this works. It's based off of your agility. And if we just do some quick math, like, okay, I can probably get this thing once it's max level with a pretty solid agility score up to about 25 damage per stack. And if I can get with a Ferondil March up to like 5 marks, maybe closer to 7 or 8 marks, like 200 damage factor would be pretty freaking legit every skill cycle from having applied some good number of debuffs onto the enemy. Now, there are some pretty cool ways to go about doing that, but just as a reminder, cowardice is only at the time of this recording coming from Ferondil. That's it. The Berserk Faedrake is also a flyer, so like, yeah, you use that with Ferondil, and like, it's pretty freaking sweet as a combo. I don't think I would use the Berserk Faedrake anywhere else. Yes, you may be able to find enough debuffs and a way to get those debuffs, and we'll talk about a few hacks for that in just a minute. For example, by the way, let's just do it now. You can get extra debuffs in your talents. So in my Ferondil talents, I went in and I have 4 points in ambush, even though I'd like to have 5. And I put the 5th point over here instead, which has a chance to inflict a gloom debuff. Instead of taking Soul Siphon, which would have a chance to give me rage, I have this ability Cyclone Seal. Whenever you cast a rage skill, it inflicts slow on the target legion, reducing their march speed, which is a debuff, which should give me a Fierce Mark. And then over here, Reticent. This is a debuff. It should give me a Fierce Mark. You get the idea. I've chosen talents, and I'm using Ferondil as the primary to get as many of these debuffs as I possibly can. In fact, I use Ferondil with Freygar, which is going to be super relevant because she has a skill that has a debuff. And again, cowardice is on the active skill of Ferondil. All right, so if you've bought in, I feel like I clubbed you over the head there with the fact that, like, really this is a Ferondil pet, and really Ferondil primary seems to be the way to go. What are the attributes you're going to want to get on one of these bad boys? And obviously, this is an agility primary pet. That's how your arrogance damage is determined. From there, I would put prioritization probably into strength, followed by luck. And we're going to talk about a luck breakpoint, which is really crazy if you have it and a bummer if you don't. I am tragically a tiny number of points below the breakpoint for luck, which is really kind of infuriating actually, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's get started with the basic skill breakdown. Generally speaking, with a pet, I think that you can go with either a hero-based build where you're enhancing what the hero can do, or you go with a pet damage build. And this is a pet, because it's doing damage over here, where I think you should go slam dunk with a pet damage build. So how do we do that? Well, for a moment, you can ignore that I have wild agility on here, giving me a little bit of march speed, because I think you can do better than this. And we'll talk about what better is. Better definitely starts with fierce attack. The thing about using cavalry, especially for Rondel, is you should be getting an instant filling of your rage bar when you hit a ranged march. So anything tied into using your active skills is really good because you should get that to trigger almost instantly at the start of the fight. So if you can get a fierce attack trigger at the start of a fight, that's insane. Get fierce attack, it's very good, and it's one of the reasons why going with a pet build just makes sense. Pet damage build all the way. From there, you take things like Tooth and Claw, which will enhance both your Arrogance skill damage, and it should also enhance your fierce attack. From there, we actually have many other options, but before I talk about them, we need to show why it is that I have Chain Strike. Now, I covered this in depth in a separate video, but Chain Strike can trigger any of the abilities that would trigger from a normal attack. That is crazy. Remember I showed you Freygar's fourth skill has a debuff that comes from normal attacks? So you get an extra Chain Strike attack, you could trigger Freygar's debuff, which gives you a fierce mark over here. See the value? There are other things on Ferondil. He's got other talents that I was showing you earlier, like the ability to inflict your enemy with the defense break from normal attacks, right? Extra normal attacks have opportunities to trigger this. So Chain Strike is, in my opinion, a slam dunk. The other one that's really good is Head Held High. I didn't show you that one. It's a 10% chance to gain 50 rage from a normal attack. Like that alone is worth taking Chain Strike. It's extra chances to trigger that, and that is so good. Yes, I want rage. Give me rage. Chain Strike is super, super good on this pet and is super, super good with the right talents and hero combinations, okay? But from here, you have some really cool options on this pet to crank the damage. Because we're talking about a pet damage build, I really like the Angry Roar combo with also the skill that you can buy, and it is luck-based, it is Blood Roar. Angry Roar you have to catch, Blood Roar you can buy. They're increasing your pet's crit rate, and at a 2-star, it's pretty solid, a 30% crit rate for pet skill damage. That includes both Arrogance damage, and it will include your fierce attack damage. So that to me just seems like a really great pickup going for big crits, if you can get them. A crit will do I believe a 1.5 times damage boost, plus any crit damage multipliers that you have on top of that. We haven't built this pet to have any crit damage multipliers, but if you wanted, theoretically, you could go in at the end of a season and take this pet's crit damage option. I would only take this if you have an intense pet build that you're doing, where you definitely go for the double crit rate that I was just describing, right? That's why you would go for something like Fatal Bite, but I don't think Fatal Bite's a part of this build. In fact, what you should take instead that is deceptive, and I have to give credit to the professor, by the way. The professor is the dude who pointed this out to me. Big shout out to the prof. Right over here, he pointed out that Interruption inflicts a debuff. 25% chance to inflict pet deficiency on the target legion every second. So 1 in every 4 seconds, you're going to inflict a debuff on the enemy, which gives you a stack, theoretically, of Arrogance, Fierce Mark, right? Really good. So technically, this is giving you 2 triggers, 2 debuffs every skill cycle. Kind of depends on how long your skill cycle is. I think 10 seconds is generally a good estimate. But that's actually very powerful. And that number is important to remember. And there's a reason why in the diagram I probably have in the upper right corner with the full build that I have not included Terrible Arrogance. Now, Terrible Arrogance, when Arrogance inflicts cowardice upon the target legion, your legion also gains stacks of fierce marks. With every 150 points of luck, your legion gains 1 stack. I don't know exactly how this works. I think this is saying with every 150 points of luck, when I inflict cowardice, I get an extra stack. I don't think this is saying that anytime I inflict cowardice, I get an extra fierce mark, plus I get even more fierce marks based off of my luck. Do you see what I'm saying? So in other words, on my pet, which is under 300 luck, I get 1 extra stack, I think, of fierce mark when I use cowardice. If I had more than 300 luck, I think I would get 2 stacks. I don't know. I'll update the pinned comment if I get any new information about the way this works. It's a very expensive skill. And compared to just going with interruption, which theoretically is giving you the 2 marks anyways, like I don't know why I would take terrible arrogance ever over interruption, with maybe the exception that I guess if you charge an enemy that's a ranged unit, you could instantly get some extra stacks perhaps from terrible arrogance. So TLDR, this skill is probably kind of expensive, but definitely check the pinned comment for any updated guidance I have on that bad boy. One other skill I didn't include in the build, but you should absolutely use if you want to go for it, is Outbursts of Rage. Okay? Outbursts of Rage has a 10% chance to give you a bunch of rage. This is an agility-based pet. It's a slam dunk to include this in the build. You need to be careful about the number of agility skills you take. However, you can't use this and Chain Strike, which is why I don't have it in my particular build, because you have Arrogance, you'd have Chain Strike, you'd have Outbursts of Rage, and you'd have the pet crit skill. What is it? It's not Blood for Blood, it's Angry Roar. So that's 4 agility-based skills. So you just got to be really careful. Like the build I showed you already has 4 agility skills. It's got the march speed skill. So just be mindful. You cannot have 4 agility-based skills, all right? You're going to need to make some choices there. On the topic of agility-based skills and making choices, if you wanted to go for this, you would need to make additional agility sacrifices. It is the end of season reward for this pet, and it is Forceful Arrogance. Forceful Arrogance increases your arrogance damage dealt by, wow, I mean, this is a big number, almost 36% on this pet. And that is a very, very sizable increase in the damage that you deal. It's actually kind of wild how much that is. Forceful Arrogance is a pretty solid boost, but remember, this is a 36% boost for this skill only, whereas something like Tooth and Claw, in this case, isn't, if I had a 3-star version of it, okay, just to compare, this is giving me 30% damage to both of these skills, Fierce Attack and Arrogance. You see why I like going for like the Tooth and Claw route here? Now, you can't actually get this 3-star, so maybe it's a little bit moot. You could only get a 2-star, but still, like, the 2-star version here is really, really good. It's actually all the way up at the top, right? 18.17%. I guess you'd have a choice at that point. You could either go for the Tooth and Claw, or you could go for the big skill and give yourself like the 35% damage boost over here. But like for the price, I'd rather just take Tooth and Claw. I mean, honestly. And this leaves us with a few other skills that I probably wouldn't take. If you're looking at these skills, it's like truly a thing of luxury. The first is to give yourself Super Fierce Attack. This gives your Fierce Attack 21% extra chance to trigger based on your luck. So for my luck being very high, that's pretty good. And, that's kind of like, it's got a 40% chance to trigger. It'd go up to a 60% chance to trigger, which is pretty good. I mean, it's a nice size boost to this skill only, though. That's why I feel like it's one of the last skills. You'd rather increase your damage and crit rate for both of these. The other skills that I left out, if you want to do a hero build, would be Track and Hunt, which gives you hero skill crit rate, and also the catchable equivalent. You have to catch this. It's an agility-based skill, which, like, I don't feel like you have room for another agility-based skill, but it's Pursuit Predation. And you could go for Pursuit Predation, but you need to be in a situation where you're going with a hero build. You need a reason to do that. So your hero needs to do some sort of amazing synergy with critical strikes, and that doesn't exist. The closest thing you have is the skill tree when you use a primary commander or hero like Bakshi. Bakshi with the skill tree can give you a bunch of extra crit damage, but even then, it's not enough, in my opinion, to go with the skill build. You'd need a hero kind of like you see with Sindrian and Frhagar, where it's like really about the normal attacks before you'd want to go in on that style of build. So TLDR, this pet's really sweet with Ferondil. I use him with my Eagles, and I'm having a damn good time. And if we wanted to just get a look in the report, I kind of wonder if we look at this, if I can't find some information here about the triggers for, let's see, we'll just take this one maybe. Like how we're getting the Fierce Mark triggers. I got to find a juicy report here. All right, here we go. I hit this guy pretty good, right? So I should have a number of turns where I'm working in on this guy and like, boom, instant activation of the active skills. We should see, Arrogance was triggered in the log. Right, see, this is what we're looking for. So I got a bunch of Arrogance triggers in this turn. Look at this. Look at this turn. Oh my God. Wow. See, debuffs all the way. So let's talk about that for a second. Ferondil launched a normal attack. Ferondil's talent Ambush was triggered. So I reduced, I got a defense break trigger. Wow. Sage, that gives me, let's see, hero skill damage boost. That's nice. But the Ambush triggered Arrogance. Then I had a Chain Strike attack. That's kind of cool. And then Ferondil's Tremble. When casting rage skills, see, I told you this was good. 25% chance to inflict gloom. So that one talent point inflicted gloom but triggered Arrogance. So there's a second Arrogance stack. Then Hallowed Covenant triggered. Wait a minute. Rampage effect. This is separate. What did this Arrogance? This Arrogance came from Shattering Screech. That is the active skill. So there's the Cowardice debuff. There's an Arrogance trigger. And then one more Cyclone Seal triggered. Right. This is a talent I told you about as well. When casting rage skills, inflict slow on the enemy legion, reducing their march speed. So I got, let's see here, 4 triggers of Arrogance plus the 2 extra for Cowardice. So I should be sitting at 6 Arrogance triggers, which means my pet should have fired off 2 turns after the Deputy. So this is the turn where I used an active. So the pet should have triggered here. There's the Arrogance damage. There it is, folks. There it is. 2,700 units lost by the enemy from all those stacks of Arrogance. So that's pretty good damage, right? Like, we counted, I think it was 6 stacks that I just said. And there presumably could have been more that I got in these other intervening turns. In fact, did I get any? I don't know that I would have had reason. Like, I kind of popped off on that first turn in like a really amazing way. Okay. Here's one more trigger of Arrogance, 2 more triggers of Arrogance. So I'm up to 8 Arrogance triggers, 9. Oh, wow. Dude, I'm definitely up to at least 9 Arrogance triggers that I've counted here. That's interesting. At least 9 Arrogance triggers. I might have maxed out, actually. I might have been able to go to 10, but then maxed out. So the max damage factor ability landed me 2,700 damage here. And the active skill that I did, right? How much damage did my active skill do? Let's get a look. When I did my active skill, Shattering Screech, the 1,300 damage factor, 1,200 damage factor for the way I have mine, netted me 12,500. So yeah, I mean, that damage factor, I mean, the rough ratio there, like, it kind of checks out for the amount of damage I'm dealing. But like, I got from my Berserk Faedrake, like, 1/5 of my active skill damage from my primary commander. I mean, that's not bad. That's pretty good. I'm not going to get that every cycle, but I think the Berserk Faedrake's looking pretty good, man. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. If you haven't seen my video about Chain Strike and Counter Strike, it's truly a must-watch when it comes to understanding how pets work. Card will be in the end screen in just a second. Consider subscribing and smashing a like on the video if you got value. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. And if you do share my pet build places, please be sure to give me credit. Thank you very much.